Hello! I'm so glad you made it. Thank you so much for coming to paint with me. My name is Heather. We're going to go through a tutorial today on some stormy clouds, bit of a landscape. It's a bit of a change from the tutorials that I've done in the past couple of weeks. This one might be a little bit more than beginner, but I really feel like you can do it. I totally believe in you. So we're going to practice a little wet on wet. We're going to get this sort of little storm front going in there, and I think it'll be a bit of a challenge, but a bit of fun as well. Awesome. Let's get started. So with this particular one, there's not a whole lot of sketching to do. As you can tell from the original, basically it's a very low horizon line. After that, that's about it. So I've got my paper taped down so that we can do some wet on wet and keep it from curling too much, which is a good thing. And I think this is going to be a little bit of fun. So basically you just want to choose a fairly low horizon line. Normally folks will tell you that your eye likes to have things in threes. So I always aim for thirds of the paper. This is actually a little bit lower again, just to create a little bit more interest. And I'm going to hunt down my pencil. There it is. So I'm going to go maybe about there. You can see from the original it's about, yeah, about 1.5 inches, 1 3/4 inches up from the bottom. And I will move my brushes out of the way. And I'll take my handy ruler and just give it a little bit of an eyeball across the bottom. And there we go. There's our horizon line. Not sure if you can see it. It's a bit light, but it's okay if it's light. You know what? Maybe I'll make it a little bit darker so you can see it. I'm sure you get the idea. There. Oh yeah. Okay. Better. Fantastic. Okay, so first things first, we're going to take our spray bottle and we're going to spritz our colors and charge them up. Yes, it comes with the noise every time. And we're going to mix up a couple of colors to start with to do the background portion. I will let you know what colors in particular and brands that I'm using. But you can absolutely choose your own colors if you like, and feel free to play around with it because this could be a lot of fun in different colors and different moods and emotions that'll kind of come out of putting together this little bit of a storm. Also, I'm using my Princeton Velvetouch brushes, which I absolutely adore because as a gal with fairly dry hands, these ones are perfect for me. And they keep a nice point. Now, we'll get rolling with our background. We're going to wet this entire paper when we go to get started. Which is, of course, again, why I have it taped down. And yes, my tape is a bit, well, dirty. We'll call it dirty. It's got badges from the last few paintings that I did, and I kind of reuse my tape because, you know, it's better for the environment, better for my pocket, good things like that. So we're going to mix up some colors first. You can see in the original, minus the cat hair, yay, kitties, it's got sort of a really nice pale orangey corally color in the background underneath these clouds and sort of peeking out in around them. So that's what we're going to mix up first. And I'm going to put a little bit of water in my palette. There we go. And a little bit of Vermilion, which is a really pretty orangey corally kind of color. Grab a test sheet and I'll show you what that looks like. When it's not mixed with the water, it's a bit like that. It's lovely. So that in my water, and then I'm going to put a little cadmium yellow in there with it to give it this really nice, oh, it needs to be a bit darker than that. Because if you're going to wet your paper first and then touch it with the color, you want your color just a little bit darker than you actually want it, because it will dilute when you touch the water with it. So that's better. Maybe even just a little bit darker. So a little bit more vermilion, a little bit more cad yellow. Still mixing, still mixing. Let's see what we got there now. Oh, that's lovely. Yeah, that's the one. That one there. Okay. So we've got a bit of that in our palette. So what we're going to do is wet this paper all over the place. So some nice even strokes. Now, the one drawback of reusing your tape is there's now paint on the edges of your tape. So sometimes when you're wetting your paper, you're going to grab some of that and it's going to come in with you. So you got to weigh that out. And I've wet the paper all the way down because we want it to go all the way down. Use my bigger one. And I'm going to grab my lovely corally color. And down here towards the horizon, I want it to kind of be a little bit darker. And I'm not going to cover it all the way in. I just want some nice spots, because in between I'm going to leave a little bit of yellow. So I'm going to draw those back and forth a little bit, all the way up to the top, but leaving a little bit of space in a few places. And then I'm going to grab a little bit of my cadmium yellow. I'm going to touch that in the middle there to push it around, and then in a few other spots, just to give it a little variation. And it's okay that this is really light because we're going to paint our clouds right on top of it. Now I've got a nice bit of color on there. I'm going to rinse my brush and dab it off in my paper towel a little, and right where we've got that nice little spot of a highlight in here, I'm going to, with my little bit of damp brush, I'm going to lift that out to make it stand out a little bit. Here we go. Lovely. And then we're going to let this dry completely before we move on to the next part. Okay, so now that we have let this entire thing dry, so it's really nice and dry, we'll mix up some water in our palette with a little bit of Prussian blue and a little bit of indigo and a little bit of Payne's gray, so that we'll get this sort of misty blue-gray stormy cloud color, which is lovely. And then one of my favorites, we're going to use Moon Glow by Daniel Smith, which I adore. So pretty. Now, if you don't have Moon Glow, that's okay. We can mix something similar with a little bit of water in our palette and a little bit of Payne's gray and a little bit of mauve. And you'll get this sort of purpley gray color, which is what we're kind of looking for. There we go. So it's not quite Moon Glow. Moon Glow has lovely undertones in it, but you can also do this and make it close, pretty close. So again, this is all lovely and dry. We're going to take our big brush and we're going to, before we do that, we're going to put a bit of tape across our horizon line. go. And we'll press it down a little bit, not too much. There. So now we won't get our bottom area involved. So we'll get some water on our big brush, and we're going to give it a little bit of a glisten on that top layer. So not soppy wet, not soupy, and you don't want to scrub at it so much that you're picking up the colors in underneath. But just so that it's nice and damp, and if you kind of lean to one side, you can sort of catch if there's any holidays. That's what my grandfather used to call spots when you're painting walls and ceilings that you missed. There's a holiday in the paint. Thank you, Grampy. Now then, we got a nice little damp surface there. We're going to add some base clouds. And you want to still be able to see some of this nice corally colors underneath. So we're going to start with our darker color and just come across the bottom to give it a little bit of an edge to know where we want to stop, basically. Because we want to still be able to see this nice highlight underneath. But we want some nice deep clouds to make a bit of a difference. So we're going to drag these back and forth a little bit, remembering to leave a little bit of space in between. And rinse, and we'll put some of our nice blue on there. That looks so pretty against that corally orange too. Kind of dab that around a little bit. And maybe there's a little bit in here. There we go. Swap out to my smaller brush and take a little bit of that nice corally color that we used in the background and just add a little bit down here around where this highlight is to make it look just a little softer but a little bit more vibrant. There we go. We'll pull the cat hair out. Yeah. And a little bit of my very dilute cad yellow just to make that stand out a little bit more. There we go. Now then, get some of that moon glow on my brush that I love so much, and I'm going to pull that through too in a few places. Got a little crumbly there. Oop. Oh, a couple of crumblies. I may be getting to the bottom of that. There we go. Some darker spaces coming in at the top there. Pushing it around. And remember, you're going to want to leave some of the corally colors showing through too, so when you get a little bit further in, keep an eye out to make sure that you're not covering all of it. There we go. Maybe a little bit more of our blue to push around in there. And you can see it's starting to dry a little bit right there. So I'm going to rinse my brush, dab it off a little bit, and just soften that out because I don't want anything too hard in there just yet. There we go. That's better. That's better. A little bit more blue in here. There we go. And I'm going to pull a bit of a highlight right through there for the top of that front that's towards the bottom, and a little bit right there. Dab that a little bit. There we go, and we're going to let this dry completely as well. Okay, so now that this is entirely dry all over, I'll remove some of the little crumbly bits. And this is where our paper towel is going to come very, very handy. And we're going to, rather than wet the entire area, we're going to use sort of a watery version of the color and then soften the edges out to make a few more layers of clouds. So we're going to add a little bit more blue and indigo to our darker blue color so that you get this shade here. And we're going to use the Moon Glow with a little less dilution in it, so it's again a little bit darker. And I still have some of my corally color left over that I'm going to sort of peek in there as well. So if you don't have any of that left, you might want to mix a little bit of that up before we get started. And this is kind of the fun part because we're going to make some fun clouds, I think. So I really like how this part up here turned out. There's our nice little peak of coral color through there and in a few little places. So I'm going to get my blue color, my rather watery blue color, and I'm going to push that around a little without coming quite up to that edge. And add a little bit of water to it to move it about. Oh, yeah, my Canadian accent's coming out there a little bit. And then a little bit of Moon Glow to push that in there too. And as you kind of touch them together, they're going to make this lovely spread. And they don't have to be perfect. Remember to be really kind to yourself. And they don't have to look exactly like mine because every cloud is different, just like a snowflake. And then we're going to rinse our brush. And with it still a little wet, we're going to go in and soften up some of those edges. And if you find the ribbons too dark still, you can always use your paper towel and give it a little dab. I'm going to grab a little bit of full-on Moon Glow right from the cake of paint there. And just touch that in there and make it nice and dark. There's a big storm cloud coming in there. There we go. Oh, that's lovely. And a little bit of water to kind of push that around a little. Now you can see it's getting a little bit heavy over there. So I'm going to rinse my brush, dab it off a little, and soften that up. And I might even, yeah, just pull a bit of that out there with my paper towel. Now sometimes you'll have a little bit of a hard edge, and that's okay. And then other times you want it a little bit softer. And you can make your clouds as dark or as light or as colorful as you want. That's the fun part of being the artist. You get to decide. I like that part. So some more of my lovely blue is going to come pushing down from this side a little bit. That nice deep dark blue. And I'm going to try and leave a little bit of space in there in the middle. And then a little bit of my Moon Glow underneath. Sometimes it's hard to talk and paint at the same time. It's kind of like patting your head and rubbing your stomach and then switch. Because often if I'm painting, I'm not talking, I'm singing. And that's never, sometimes it's okay. Sometimes not so much. Pretty sure there's a reason why I don't have a singing career. Although I did used to sing with a group. The lovely Aeolian singers in Halifax, they were lovely ladies. Anyway, I am rambling now. And I'm going to soften up some of these edges and push them in a little bit. Just a little bit of water. And then dab off my brush and soften them out again. Yeah, I like that, how that's coming out too. Okay. This is a little bit heavy right there. So with a little bit of a damp brush, I'm just going to go in and scrub that a little bit. Not a whole lot, because I don't mind too much of the edge, but I don't want it to be completely fenced in up there. we'll move down a little bit. We'll get some more of our blue going in here. And we'll push this little baby around. I'm going to try and leave that little bit of coral there. And kind of push this down towards this heavier piece in the middle. Give it that little bit of contrast, because that makes for all kinds of good interest. And then a little bit of water to soften that out a little. Kind of leave that in there a little bit, and I'm going to get some of that nice moon glow off, right off the cake, so that it's nice and dark. So you can see, yep, rain's coming. It's going to happen. Okay. Give that a little bit of a soften right there. That's turning out kind of nice. Just want a little bit of interest in there somewhere. Oops, sorry, hit the camera. I'm such a pro. Nope. I like this nice heavy edge at the bottom. I'm going to get some moon glow and drag that right across here at the bottom. Nice and heavy. And then soften the top edge of that out a little bit. Up into this piece up here, but I like that nice heavy line at the bottom, because that kind of sets off our highlight that we made at the bottom too. Moonglow has a little bit of a granulating piece to it, which is quite nice. Gives you that sort of soft, stormy feel going on. I like it. I like it, I like it. I want a nice dark one right there in the middle. So a bit more for me. It's going to back in with a little bit of my blue. And a bit of water to soften that out. There we go. This is coming along real nice. Yeah, I like that dark one in the middle. It's fun to kind of play with it a little bit. And you can't ruin it. You're not going to ruin it. Just try it. You're going to have fun with it. And that's the whole idea. Have fun with it. Yeah, we're going to let this part dry, and then we're going to do some few little details in there. Then we're going to start with the feel at the bottom. Okay, now that everything is, yeah, pretty much dry to the touch, I'm actually going to bring some gray, essentially, and on the sides over here to sort of round it out a little bit. So I'm going to wet just underneath that ridge of color on the bottom there. I'm going to put a little bit of water on that part there and take a little bit of our mix and bring that in from the sides. So it's pulling in towards where our sunlight comes from. When it gets close to that edge there, I'm going to rinse my brush and very much soften that edge out. And just add a little bit on the edges back here. There we go. Just make them a little bit darker. And same on this side, but with a little bit less real estate. So a little bit of water on the side. And then a little bit of our Moonglow mix. And pull that in there too. And rinse, dab, and soften that out. There we go. Oh yeah, that's better. just a little bit darker there on the edges. Lovely. Now, while that's drying, we're going to take a little bit of that nice corally background color and just add a few little spots here and there up in our clouds. Not sure why I'm whispering, so that I don't wake the clouds up. And I'll just, there we go, soften those out a little bit too. Just adds for a little bit more depth and a little bit more intrigue to this big mysterious cloud look. Then I'm going to put some just along the bottom here where it's coming in towards our highlight or our sunshine, our sunset that's kind of coming down. I'll just dab that out a little bit. But it just sets it off just enough. Doesn't need to be too crazy. Just a little bit. There we go. Oh, that's nice. I like that. Put a little bit more on that side. There we go. Oh, that's pretty. Oh, yeah. Okay. I like that very much. A little bit more orange right there. Lovely. Lovely, tell your mother. All right. And we will let that dry as well. And if you want to darken up any areas in your clouds, this is a great time to do that. So I think what I'm going to do is I'd like some of these a little bit darker across the bottom. So I'm going to take a little bit of my Moon Glow again and just add a little bit darker area in there. Just kind of push that around a little bit. Just because I like to have that heavy set at the bottom. Yeah, that's better. Okay. Yeah. Now we're going to let it all dry. Now, I think, yeah, everybody's lovely and dry. So we're going to take off our horizon tape, which I have to say is highly satisfying. Peel that off. Another reason why I reuse my tape is that it doesn't stick as much, so you have less risk of tearing the paper when you reuse your tape. So for our landscape at the bottom, you can see in the original very much is green and brown and black kind of tones. So what we're going to do is we're going to mix up some Hooker's green and a little bit of burnt umber so that we get this really nice dark, deep shadowy green. And to start with, we're going to wet that bottom portion of the paper and do a little wet on wet to get a nice even cover. So with our big brush, we're going to go along the bottom there. And again, damp is good, doesn't have to be soppy or puddly. And then we'll grab our nice green and we're going to cover that whole section in this lovely deep green. Just pull that back and forth so you get a nice, relatively even coat. And you're going to want to touch the sky just a little bit so that you get that crisp edge. There we go, lovely. And if you're so inclined to add a little variation in there, you can always grab a little bit of your burnt umber and pull that through. And I'm going to grab a little bit of indigo blue and pull that in there too. Makes for that nice shadowy colors. Nice naturally colors. There we go. And I'm going to switch to a much smaller brush, and I'm going to grab some lamp black on my tiny brush, and I'm going to a little bit purposefully unevenly go across my horizon line, adding that little bit of an edge, but with a little bit of interest so that it almost looks like there might be trees back there, or there might be things growing back there. So that if it's uneven and a little different, it gives you that opinion that, oh no, there's definitely something going on back there. There we go. And it's completely backlit, so of course the black blends into nicely with the green, but then also has a nice heavy shadow on it. So I'm just going to pull that around a few places along the back there. Maybe there's a couple of shadows in there, a little bit forward of that. And of course our grass is still a little damp, so that's lovely. There we go. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect because nothing is, so everybody's is different, because if they all looked exactly the same, boring. So different is good. There we go, and we're going to let that dry olive on its own too, and I'll be right back. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Okay, our grass is lovely and dry down there, so we're going to take our lovely dark green mix and do a little wet on dry. And we'll come in sort of halfway down and push that along in a couple of places so that it looks a little bit interesting, like there's some grass growing towards the front there. And we'll soften that out as well, so that it's not too harsh, but still adds a bit of difference towards the front. And again, we'll heavy that up a little bit on the front. And if you leave a little bit of space in there, that's all good. That's half the gorgeousness that comes out of there. I'm going to bring that all the way down to the bottom and dab it around a little so it's a little uneven. Because as the grass gets closer to you, of course, you'll see more of it. So we'll make that a little more interesting along the bottom there. There we go. And I'll switch out to my very tiny, tiny brush, my rigger brush. Love my rigger brush. And I'm going to grab some lamp black, and while this is still damp, I'm going to pull a few blades of grass right at the bottom, because that's of course what's going to be closest to you. And I start them in the same direction, so I'm going to start from the bottom and pull them towards the top. And maybe we'll have a couple that are going one way and some that are going the other. And then we'll have a couple that might be broken off at the top maybe. And we go along. And it doesn't have to be every blade of grass. You can have spaces in there. You can have some grass. You don't even have to have any grass at all if you don't want. Ah, the sound effects. There we go. A couple coming in from the side. And you'll just sort of make them out at the bottom Lovely. Okay. And when this is all dry, we're going to sign our name and brag to all our friends that we did this lovely piece of art. Good job. Okay, so we'll let this all dry and I'll catch you right back. Okay, everything is all dry. And as you can imagine, it's going to be very satisfying to take the tape off this too. So, let's reveal our lovely painting underneath. While the trucks go by outside. Ooh, bled under a little. That's okay. Not a big deal. Lovely crisp edge. Okay. So, there is our brand new painting. So, make sure you get a really good archival pen. Sign your name with a great deal of pride at the bottom. And if you're enjoying these tutorials, a lovely gal from the East Coast would really, really appreciate it if you like or comment or subscribe to my channel. It helps me out a lot. And I'm so, so glad you joined me today. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to see you again next week. Bye! So, Lewis had to come in and make sure that the painting was good. What do you think, Lewis? What do you think? It's good? Ah, the joys of having a cat in your studio. Yay! Paw. Give it a little sniff. I love you, buddy.